Attorney General, would you agree that it is important for law enforcement leaders to be honest?
Of course, as well as members of Congress.
Thank you. And would you include yourself as a law enforcement leader?
Of course.
Okay.
Right out of the gate, this is a credibility trap. When the Attorney General agrees that law enforcement leaders must be honest and includes herself in that category, that's a strategic setup, because now every follow-up question becomes a character test. The real tension here isn't policy, it's integrity. And
Thank you. Thank you. You know, President Trump has also, he has referred to himself as the chief law enforcement officer of this country. So do you believe that President Trump is honest?
He is the commander-in-chief of the United States of America, and
that
not only is
Trump
he
is
keeping
honest?
this country safe,
Do you
he
believe
is keeping
is
this
honest?
world
It's a
safe.
simple question,
Of
which
course
you didn't
I do.
answer.
He is
Okay,
the
thank you.
commander-in-chief.
that right there is what courtroom observers call a non-answer answer. Instead of addressing whether the president is honest, the response reframes his title, Commander-in-Chief. Legally, that's deflection. Politically, it's protection. In high-stakes hearings, wording is everything. Notice how the question is simple, but the response sidesteps the core issue. Do you think that's strategic restraint or avoidance?
Last June, Minnesota lawmaker Melissa Hortman, her husband Mark, and their dog were brutally murdered in their home. And your USA's office in Minnesota investigated this crime and obtained a 6-count indictment of the murder suspect, stating that he had intent to kill, injury, harass, and intimidate Minnesota legislators. And I have the copy right here. I read through it. Yet a few weeks ago, President Trump suggested publicly that Minnesota Governor Tim Walz was behind these murders, posting on his Truth Social account a video raising this conspiracy theory. And it wasn't true. And you know it wasn't true, or else you would not have.
This is a critical legal moment. An indictment requires probable cause, meaning prosecutors believed there was sufficient evidence tying the accused to the crime. So when the Speaker argues that conspiracy claims contradict a formal indictment, that's not just political rhetoric, that's pointing to documented legal action. If the Justice Department charged someone else, then publicly floating alternative blame narratives can seriously erode public trust. And trust in law enforcement? That's foundational.
Brought an indictment against the subject. Do you know what else Trump has said? He has said he has cut gas prices by 1,400%. False. That he won the 2020 election.
Actually,
False.
gas is down
That
to
he
$1.99
didn't know
a gallon, thanks to
that
President
he didn't
Trump.
know Epstein.
Maybe $5
False.
in
That
California.
He said, it's my time, Mr. Chair. That he sent water to LA during the wildfires. False. That Governor Westmore of Maryland called him the greatest president of his lifetime. False. So many tales, too many to keep up. But I want to go back to what he said about Tim Walz. Do you agree that President Trump undermined public trust in law enforcement by suggesting that Governor Walz...
Now the stakes shift from facts to institutional credibility. The question isn't just, was the statement true? It's, did it damage trust? That's a huge distinction. Public trust in law enforcement hinges on consistency between evidence and public messaging. When officials say they're not familiar with a major claim, it can land as evasive, even if it's procedural. What do you think? Is that a fair expectation for an attorney general to track every public statement tied to an active case?
was involved in the Hortman murders?
I am not familiar with that statement.
Well, that is a disappointing response, and it is also why your office and Donald Trump have zero credibility, because I know, and you know, it was a right-wing extremist who murdered the Hortmans, and you and the president are being dishonest with the American people. Last fall, after the horrific shooting of Charlie Kirk, President Trump was asked if there were extremists on both the left and the right, And his exact words were, "I'll tell you something that's going to get me in trouble, but I couldn't care less." The radicals on the right oftentimes are radical because they don't want to see crime. The radicals on the left are the problem, and they're vicious, and they're horrible, and they're politically savvy. Do you agree with this statement? You're taking too long, Madam Attorney General. But you know the answer, because your own department has addressed the question. In 24, the DOJ's research arm issued a report on domestic terrorism, stating that the number of far-right attacks continues to outpace all other types of terrorism and domestic violence extremists. The DOJ published the report, and after the president made those comments, the DOJ took the report down. And I sent you a letter asking you a simple question. Why did the Justice Department remove the data that showed...
This is where it turns into a battle over data transparency. If a federal report documented trends in domestic extremism and was later removed, that raises serious questions. Was it updated, recontextualized, or scrubbed? In legal and policy circles, taking down official research can create suspicion, especially during heated political debates. Transparency builds credibility. Removing information without explanation, that does the opposite.
Those right-wing extremists have killed more innocent people than left-wing extremists.
Did you refer to immigration enforcement as domestic terrorism?
You should answer my question. Yes. You're on my time, but you won't. And what I am asking you to do is put the report back. Restore the data. Stop scrubbing important data from your website. Stop taking down reports that you know the American people need to know about. There are violent, dangerous people out here with real threats, and the dishonesty from your agency comes from the covering up of these threats that could hurt American people and put our lives at rest. Do better. And with that, I yield back.
The lady yields back. The gentleman from North Carolina is recognized.
May I have one moment?
You may.
Her district includes Culver City, and she's not talking about any crime in her district. Nothing about helping crime in her district. She's not even worth getting into the...
And there it is, the final pivot from policy to personal. When debates end with dismissal rather than rebuttal, it signals the breakdown of substantive exchange. Instead of addressing the data, the argument shifts to attacking relevance. That's a classic political closing move. But here's the bigger takeaway. This hearing wasn't really about one case. It was about truth, narrative control, and who defines public reality.